Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Dustin Schwent, and I'm one of the professors of film media arts. So let me just make sure the audio is working. We're good. All right, so I teach introduction to film history, and also screenwriting. And so today we're going to be talking about some aspect of storytelling. Let me, So today we're going to be looking at archetypes in film, characters that are typical to Hollywood movies. So the first thing is, the idea of an archetype is basically a typical example of something, and also something that is a reoccurring symbol in art. If we're looking at film specifically, an archetype is a reoccurring character with particular traits that are essential to the story. Okay, so we'll get to archetypes in a bit. We're going to first talk about just story in general. Okay. So let's take a moment and think about how stories are shaped and structured. Okay, so before film ever started, Aristotle was looking at story and drama, and he diagrammed story in this way. He described story as having a beginning, middle, and an end. And so his diagram looked like this, where at the beginning you have exposition. And exposition is basically delivering information to the audience so they understand the world they're in and what's going on with the characters. And then that's followed by rising action towards a climax at the middle point of the film. And then that descends into falling action towards what they refer to at the end of a film as the denouement. But this map here is for drama, because Aristotle was looking at Greek tragedies and how they were structured. But since then, a more common way to look at story has been the three-act structure. Okay. So this is the common structure in films today. So you still have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but these parts are named other things now. Okay. So in a three-act structure, you have part one. Act one is the setup of the film. Okay. And then that's followed by act two is the confrontation, and then act three is the resolution. And if you'll notice in act one, in the middle part of it, there's what we call the inciting incident. Okay. So in a story, you have, you start out with things being very ordinary, going on with the normal life, and then suddenly something happens, and it's this event, something affects things, and this is what we call the inciting incident that starts the story off. And at that point, the character has to make decisions about, do they want to participate in this adventure or not? And usually at the act break, we often refer to this as the plot point. The character makes a decision and enters this new world. Okay. And once they enter the new world, there's several obstacles they go through, and several events. And usually the first half of act two is the most entertaining part of the film. And that finally brings them to the midpoint where there's a big change. So I'm sure many of you this last year are familiar with the film Parasite. Okay. So if you think of the beginning, you have the main character, is it Ki-woo, right? Main character of Parasite. He's going on with his ordinary life with his family. They're struggling with money. And then their friend comes and brings them the rock and also this opportunity to have a job. And he goes for the interview, gets the job, and then starts getting his family to join as well. So these are the obstacles we're talking about, several things he has to go through to get his family there. And if you think about the midpoint of Parasite, exactly at the middle of the film, if you watch the film and you see right at the midpoint, this is the moment where the doorbell rings and everything changes in the story. And then there's new obstacles and more dangers. And finally, at the act break between act two and three, you have another climax. Now, if you look at this chart here, you'll see that it rises up and it's this high point. But what we're talking about here is dramatic high point. And often this is a low point in the film. So this is the moment where things are the most complex, the most difficult, there's the most tension because of it, and you don't know what people are going to do to solve it. And so this act break is pretty much the moment in Parasite of the storm, where they're escaping the house and now they have to kind of go back, and then we have Act 3 where the party happens. And within Act 3, you have another climax, and then finally the resolution of the film at the end. So this 3-act structure is a common structure people use when they're writing films. And when we teach screenwriting, we look at how to structure our film that way. Okay. So in 1949, the Joseph Campbell came along and he mapped out stories in a different way. His background was he was a professor at Sarah Lawrence College, and he studied mythology. And he looked at all the stories around the world and how they were structured. And so he would see these common myths in different parts of the world, common motifs, symbols. And he also saw that the actual structure of the story itself was very common. So he eventually put a book out called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And the idea was that stories that we think are specific to our culture are actually part of a universal human story, where a lot of these archetypes can be translated across cultures. Okay, one example is the motif of the snake. In many cultures, the snake is kind of a representation of change, because snakes peel their skin away and form new skin. Okay. So he looked at story this way, and he structured story in this hero's journey structure, and it also has 3 main parts. Okay, at the beginning, you have the character in the ordinary world, and there's this departure from that world. And then there's the descent in part 2 into the world of trials, okay, and different obstacles, things the characters have to go through. And finally, at the end, in the part 3, you have the hero returning to the ordinary world with new knowledge. Okay. So this is a structure that now, if you look at 3-act structure and also this structure, if you put the 2 together, Hollywood often looks at films with both of them. Okay. So if you take the hero's journey structure and look at it with the 3-act structure, it looks like this. In the ordinary world, Act 1, you have the character starting off, and this call to adventure is the same as that inciting incident. Something happens that changes the hero's world, and he has to make a decision. And usually early on in Act 1, the hero is maybe refusing to take that action, okay? Often in the first part too, you have a moment of meeting with the mentor, okay? In the case of Parasite, the mentor character, I will mention later on this character called the Herald. So it's, Min Kyung? I'm trying to think his friend's name in the film. Is it Min Kyung? I forget. I have written down. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. No, Min Hyuk. Sorry. So Min Hyuk is kind of a double character. He's a herald because he's bringing the adventure, but he's also a mentor because he talks about how to get the job. Okay. But there's this meeting with the mentor in Act 1, and then the hero makes the choice and crosses the threshold. If any of you have ever seen the film The Matrix, Neo takes the red pill. That's sort of the act break moment in that film where he decides, I'm going to go on this adventure now. Okay. In Act 2, you have the character going through these obstacles, and Joseph Campbell talks about the idea of tests, allies, and enemies. So early on, a hero will go through these various tests, and through the tests, they usually gain allies from it. So if you think of a lot of films where characters go to a new place and start to make friends because of their abilities. Harry Potter is a good example of that. Harry gets on the train, he meets Ron and Hermione, and so this is a way of gaining friends through his character and actions. And finally, in the middle of the film, you have the ordeal, which is one of the more tense moments of the film dramatically. And then the characters escaping out of that. And then finally, there's a decision again in Act 3 where they have to decide, do we want to go back and fight this thing that we're dealing with? And usually this is a big decision for the hero where they have to let go of their own ego, their own goals, and go for something new, make a sacrifice in some way. So George Lucas, he was a film student at USC, and he read Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and he decided it really inspired him in writing his own film, Star Wars. And so if we look at Star Wars, it's really a good example of the hero's journey mapped out really well. So Luke Skywalker starts off as this poor young man in the desert, doesn't have really anything. And he gets this, buys this robot that has a message from outer space from Princess Leia that says, "Help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope." Okay, and so Luke Skywalker is not sure what to do with it. And finally, by chance, he meets Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay, and Obi-Wan Kenobi at first calls himself Ben, and he's this old man who lives in this desert area, and he's kind of hiding out from the Empire. And so this is a classic example of the meeting with the mentor, where Luke has to make a decision now. Do I cross into the new world? And so Luke meets with him and Han Solo, and they go out to space, and they have various adventures and various tests. They get into the Death Star, and they save the princess. And once they have her, they escape. And then finally, there's a decision that they have to go back now, and they have to destroy the Death Star. And so Luke now, having all these new skills and abilities and confidence, he gets in his X-Wing with his friends, and he attacks the Death Star, and they blow it up, okay? So that's a good example of a hero's journey structure from start to finish, okay? So Hollywood, let me back up for a second. I wanted to show you guys a slight clip. This is Joseph Campbell talking about this hero's journey. So we'll take a moment and look at that. I'm going to click this link, and what we'll do is I'll share the YouTube with you guys, but let me, I'll take an additional step here and give you guys the link as well, so you can watch it. Sorry, we're having a little bit. Is the internet not working? Okay. Okay, I think we're okay. 1 second. Maybe. Keeps doing things, but okay. All right, so let me share this link for you, and for all of you out there, if you want to watch this. Sorry. Jeez. Sorry, 1 second. I'm having pop-ups, and I apologize. I'm just looking for the Zoom thing that's hidden under everything here. Where is the, oh, there it is. Why is it up there? Okay. So let me share this YouTube link with you guys. And I'm going to give you the whole video in the chat, and so you can copy it and watch it later on. But for now, let me show you just a bit of it here. Okay. Okay. I apologize. Lots of buttons to click. Okay. Close this. Sorry, I'm trying to close things. Okay, so sorry, it's like disappearing. Where'd the share screen go? I'm looking for the share screen, guys. Just hold on one second. Oh, there. It moves all the time. Okay. Okay, here we are. Okay, so back to the hero's journey. So one thing about this is a lot of people, when they think of 3-act structure or the hero's journey structure, they think of it in terms of rules. And they think, is this a rule? Do I have to make a story just like this? It's not so much about a rule that you're prescribed, you have to make it exactly the structure. But what these shapes of stories are is that they are recognition of basically how our psychology works and how our mind works. So human beings in our own life, we go through various changes. And just like Joseph Campbell was talking about, you leave what's normal about your life and you go experience new things, and then you return with new knowledge and things change in your life. And so there's a psychological process that you go through as well from that. Okay, many of you are about to experience that. You're home now, you're about to leave home to go to college, you're going to be changed by the experience, and there's going to be new challenges as you return home with this new knowledge you have. And how do you reinsert yourself in the world you came from? So this is just part of how life kind of works. And so these structures are sort of recognizing what is happening in reality in our own stories. So Hollywood is very aware of the success of this structure, and so they often build stories around that structure, and with it, they have certain characters that they often put into their films. And so we're going to talk about those 8 archetypes of movie characters, and each of these has common traits that you'll see across many films. Okay. So the first one, obviously, is the hero. Okay. And this is the easiest archetype to know in a film, because this is the one who really changes the most. And they grow and they go through experiences, and often this hero has some big sacrifice that they make at some point, and they make big risks. In some cases, they're risking their life. Okay, so metaphorically, the hero represents our own ego. And so one challenge of a film is, how do you make the audience identify with the main character of a film? Because to do that, we then go through that experience with them, and we care about them, and we want them to succeed. And so the low points for them are low points for us as an audience, and we empathize. Okay. The next archetype is the mentor. And the mentor is a representation of kind of the higher self, the things we aspire to. And often this is a character who's from that magical world, who understands it, and then is introducing it to the hero in some way. And the hero learns from the mentor and takes the tools they give them and accomplishes their goal. Now, in a lot of films, the mentor will give the hero a magical gift, like some kind of object. Sometimes it can be a weapon. There's a book called The Alchemist, and the character Santiago, he trades all his goods for the gift from the mentor before he heads off on his journey, and he gets a treasure map from him. In Star Wars, for example, Obi-Wan Kenobi gives Luke the lightsaber, which is sort of the magical object that Luke uses to fight later on. Okay. Also, the mentor often will disappear in the film at some point, usually before the 3rd act. And it can be a tragic moment of death, or it can be another way they pull back, and the hero then has to sort of do things on their own. So in Star Wars, again, Obi-Wan dies before they leave. Spoiler alert. Okay. So along the way, there's other sort of minor characters in films. One of them is the Threshold Guardian. And so this is the character who's kind of a lower rank character. They're usually a gatekeeper, and they provide sort of those early obstacles as the character leaves the ordinary world and goes into the new world. Okay. They often appear at the beginning of a film, and they sometimes can be converted to an ally. So this is one example of a Threshold Guardian from a movie called Robin Hood. And this is, they call him Little John, and he guards the river and Robin Hood has to fight him, but then after he beats him, they actually become allies in the film and work together against the bigger antagonist. Okay. So, and that's often a thing that happens, that threshold guardians get converted into friends. So here's one example is from The Wizard of Oz. This is a film in 1939, and the Cowardly Lion is sort of a famous threshold guardian. Okay. And you'll see, I'll show you guys this scene here. Oh, no. Sorry, let me back up. No sound on the video. Thank you. Well, that's weird because it's... Oh, that's why. I got it. Sorry about that.
Shame on you!
What did you do that for? I didn't buy them.
No, but you tried to. It's bad enough picking on a straw man, but when you go around picking on poor little dogs...
Well, you didn't have to go and hit me, did you? Is my nose bleeding?
Well, of course not. My goodness, what a fuss you're making. Well, naturally, when you go around picking on things weaker than you are, why, you're nothing but a great big coward.
You're right. I am a coward. I haven't any courage at all. I even scare myself. Look at the circles under my eyes. I haven't slept in weeks.
Why don't you try counting sheep?
That doesn't do any good. I'm afraid of them.
Oh, that's too bad. Don't you think the wizard could help him, too?
I don't see why not. Why don't you come along with us? We're on our way to see the wizard now, to get him a heart.
And him a brain.
I'm sure he could give you some courage.
Well, wouldn't you feel degraded to be seen in the company of a cowardly lion? I would.
Oh, of course not.
Gee, that's awfully nice of you. My life has been simply unbearable.
Oh, well, it's all right now. The wizard will fix everything.
So you can see there that the lion at the beginning is guarding the path, and now he's been converted into a friend that's going on the journey with them. So this is a very classic example of that archetype. So the other one I mentioned earlier is the herald. And this is a character that often is a minor character that comes in early in the film, and they represent change. And they're someone who often introduces the adventure initially to the hero. Okay. So Minhyuk is a good example of that. So he's someone who's very kind of confident, energetic, and the family likes him. And so he comes in and he gives them the stone, and he also sits down with Kiwoo and offers him the opportunity to have the job. Okay. So heralds in a lot of different films can be very sort of colorful in some way. And so we're attracted to them, and they represent this kind of call to a new experience. Okay. So when you guys decide to come to the University of Utah, that's going to be an example. When you get your admissions letter, that will be an example of a herald. Okay, it'll announce your new adventure, and you will then make a decision to come here. Okay, so that's one example too. Another archetype in film, and this is one that's the most mysterious, is the shapeshifter. Okay, this can be a literal shapeshifter, or it can be someone that's actually switching their moods in some way. So shapeshifters are characters who represent sort of this what we call the animus, like this changeability of things. They're elusive, they shift, they're unstable, and they create a sense of chaos in the film that makes things unpredictable, okay? But shapeshifters can also be, it doesn't have to be someone who actually physically changes shape. It can also be someone who's changing their loyalties, someone you don't necessarily trust, and just has these behaviors that you can't really pin down. So Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean is a good example of a shape-shifting character. The other characters often do not know where Jack's loyalties are in the film. Okay. And then a darker character, this is usually the main antagonist of film that we refer to as the shadow. And this is the idea of the dark side of things, okay? Sometimes the shadow is an actual character who's a major antagonist, and sometimes the shadow can be other forces at work, okay? In some movies, the shadow can be a storm. It can be something that's actually a force of nature, okay? But it also represents sort of the dark side of our human nature, things we have to grapple with. So in movies about drug addiction, for example, the addiction can be the shadow that the character's dealing with in themselves. Okay. So to fight these big forces, the hero needs an ally. Okay. And the ally is a really important character for storytelling. Often an ally is used in the early part of that journey for exposition to introduce the main character, but also the audience to the new world. And they're also someone that the character can talk to. Okay. Because if you make a movie and you have the main character talking to themselves, the audience is going to think it's very strange. So you need those friends next to them for them to talk to and work with. Okay. So Ron Weasley is a good example of an ally character, an ally archetype. So, because he's very loyal and yeah, and so it's basically a reminder of the friendships that we have in our own lives and our own journeys. And then finally, a very interesting character in film is what we call the trickster, okay? And the trickster is often used in film to kind of embody mischief, chaos, and change. They're also a character that is not afraid of other powerful characters. They're willing to sort of defy them. But the trickster serves a really important function dramatically, because when you're watching, for example, a dramatic film or an action film, if you only have drama and if you only have action, the audience eventually is going to kind of get tired. And so you need a trickster to be there to provide comic relief. And usually in a tense moment, the trickster is there to kind of give you a bit of a moment of levity where something funny happens and you're allowed to relax for a moment before things get serious again, okay? Also, tricksters make great heroes, okay? So for example, Tom Cruise in Top Gun, Maverick, his character Maverick, is a trickster hero. He's someone that plays jokes and does things that annoy other people, and it entertains us, the audience. We get humor out of it. Another trickster hero is Kevin McAllister from Home Alone, okay? And his trickster nature is essential to his survival. So he's able to play these jokes on everyone in the house and defend his house from the people robbing it, okay? So going back to our 8 archetypes from the Avengers, this is an example of how that works. Now, sometimes Captain America is also a hero, okay? But in the case of the film, 2012 film, The Avengers, the movie concentrates a little more on Iron Man, because Iron Man makes the big sacrifice at the end. And then along the way, he has these other archetypes that are there. Now, the interesting thing is Hulk as the shapeshifter, okay? Because Hulk is a good example. He actually changes shape. But also a big dramatic element of all the Avengers films is whether or not the Hulk can help them or not, because he has too much energy, or sometimes he says, I can't do it. So in the later films, you'll notice he's like doing some things to calm himself so he can't Hulk out. So it's a constant tension in the film of whether or not the Hulk is going to be a reliable ally to work with. And then another good example of the trickster is Loki. Loki's a fantastic trickster character because he's full of humor, but he's also someone that's creating a lot of chaos in the world. Okay. All right. Now, I know you guys like tests, right? Okay, so we're just going to do a quick little review exam. And what I want you to do is at home, just go ahead and number 1 to 8. You could do this on your computer in a little Word document, or you can write it down, whatever you want, or you could just memorize. But I'm going to show you guys a small video, and it's going to have 8 different scenes from the film The Lord of the Rings. And whether or not you've seen The Lord of the Rings, you're going to be able to probably figure out what these are, because the idea is that each of these scenes kind of is an example of each of these archetypes. And so what I want you to do is watch the video and then write down which one it is, okay? So the choices are on the right, and then on the left you can pick which one goes there, okay? So let me share this video here. Now this time I'm going to share my whole screen because we need to see the video and the choices, okay? So let me move this here. Expand it. Uh-oh. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to play this, and let's hope the audio works. Yep, sound's still on. Okay. So here's number 1.
Must be taken deep into Mordor and cast back into the fiery chasm from whence it came. One of you must do this.
Okay, so think about which archetype that is. Okay, that's number 1. And I can play these again one more time. We have a little bit of time. So, number 2.
If by my life or death I can protect you, I will. You have my sword.
Okay, which archetype is that? And here's number 3.
What do you want?
We're heading for the prancing pony.
Hobbits? 4 hobbits? What business brings you to Bree?
We wish to stay at the inn. Our business is our own.
All right, young sir, I meant no offense. It's my job to ask questions after nightfall.
Okay, so which one is that? One key thing is that there's a door, right? Okay, all right. Number 4.
It is a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt over so small a thing. Such a little thing.
Boromir!
Give the ring to Frodo.
Okay, so think about what that one could be. That one's a bit of a tricky one, so we'll get back to it. Here's number 5.
Sting. Here, take it, take it. It's so light.
Yes, yeah. Made by the elves, you know. The blade glows blue when orcs are close. And it's times like that, my lad, when you have to be extra careful. Here's a pretty thing. Mithril. As light as a feather, and as hard as dragon scales.
Okay, and then here's number 6.
They are coming.
So here's a hint for number 6. Many of your ambassadors in here are laughing. So, okay. Number 7.
In place of a dark lord, you would have a queen! Not dark, but beautiful and terrible as the dawn! Treacherous as the sea! Stronger than the foundations of the earth! All shall love me and despair!
Okay, and the final one, number 8. This should be the easiest one.
will take the ring to Mordor. Though I do not know the way.
All right, so are you guys out there chatting with them? Okay. All right, so what did you guys have for number one? Let's hear some answers for number one. So go ahead and write them into the chat if you're out there. So this was number one. What'd you have? Any answers? Are they writing anything? Oh, okay, we have some answers here. Okay, we're seeing ally, and also D was as the herald. Yeah, D is correct. It's the herald. This is the moment where he's announcing the adventure. Okay. All right. So, how about number two? Okay. So go ahead and type your answers in there. And remember, he stands up and he says, I'm here to help you. You have my sword. Okay. And so some answers here. G, guardian. Yeah, guardian, when I say guardian, I'm talking about threshold guardian. Slightly different thing. But yeah, G is the correct one for this. Ally. This is Frodo's friend helping him on the adventure. Okay. And then number three was this man here. Okay. I'll just go ahead and tell you this one. This is an example of the threshold guardian, right? Someone at the door who's telling you you cannot pass, and they're able to pass the test through having confidence, just like Dorothy did with the lion. Okay, number four. This one's a bit tricky. What do you guys have for this one? Okay. So I'm seeing E, shapeshifter. Okay. Now this, I think in this case, this could be either shapeshifter or shadow. Okay. Shadow is what I was going for initially. That's F, because the ring in the movie is the evil force that's sort of affecting. And in this moment, you can hear the ring kind of whispering to them. Okay. And then what about number five? Number five? No, not the hero. Remember, this is an old man, and he gives Frodo the sword and the magic mithril to protect him. Okay, so that's right. Yes, B is right. It's the mentor. Okay, mentor character. And then we have number six, and this is the moment where your classmates in here were laughing. Okay. So this is a good example of H, yes, the trickster character, someone who brings some relief. So Pippin is a bit of a problem sometimes for them, even though he's a good person. And then we have this moment. Now this, I think some of you might say this is shadow because it sort of seems like an evil moment. But this is Galadriel, who's a very nice person, suddenly changing into shape and showing that she could be a threat. And so this is an example of a shapeshifter character in a moment. Okay. And then finally we have Frodo, who is the main character of the movie. He's the one that goes on the biggest adventure and most challenges, so he is the hero of the film. Okay. So there you have it. Okay. So there's your answers there. Anyway, thank you guys for your attention. I apologize for some of the slight difficulties. It's just we had to move things around the screen. But I hope you guys will come here and consider taking some of our classes in storytelling, like screenwriting. So thank you for your attention. So have a great day. Welcome to UAC.